In 1981, a group of friends from Michigan went to a small cabin in Tennessee for a summer getaway. Unfortunately, four of those people would never be seen alive again, and the one survivor was accused of murder that he was, of course, acquitted of. However, the reasoning behind his survival and the murder of his friends, he claims to this day, was caused by something that can only be described as pure evil. It is not only bizarre of what happened to this man that is known as Ashley J. Williams, but also these murders' ties to various other cases that one day, dear listener, we will take time speaking of each and every time. But for now, we will speak of the first one. Welcome back to the Monsters We Make. I am your host, Mr. Multiverse, and once again, I am joined by my good friend Matt Denian. And today we'll be talking about the 1981 Ashley Williams murders. If you wish not to subject your nerves to such a strain, however, now is your chance to, well, we warned you. Matt, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Doing well, although like a little thrown off. You mentioned the events of this. We should throw out there real quick. We were, this is not a joke, just trying to start recording this, and my entire screen gave me a white line and said, it screeched at me and said encountered an error, and we had to start over. So an ill omen, perhaps, for what we're about to discuss today?
It could be. This is probably some of the darkest details that we've spoken of since the Christian Brown disappearance.
Yeah. A lot of similarities here, like you'd mentioned before. This is one where bad stuff happened, Tyler. No matter how we look at it, the question is exactly what had occurred, right? This is a fairly well-known case, given the individual involved, and to some people, a murderer who got away with it. To other people, potentially, I dare say, a hero, based on his own story, which makes it difficult to wrap your head around. But we'll go over the details here, right, and see what we think is the deal.
Yeah, let's actually talk about our person of interest for this case. This man right here, Ashley J. Williams. This is his high school photo right here. What do you know about Mr. Williams?
That he has one hell of a chin to start. Just looking at it. No, that he was kind of a not much to him when he was in high school, right? Kind of just your run-of-the-mill average person. Had a sister, I believe, a year younger than him. Had a girlfriend. Worked in convenience stores for the most part. That was all like before an ill-fated trip to a secluded cabin in the woods where something definitely went down, and his entire party, with the exception of him, ended up missing and or dead, right?
That's correct. For all intents and purposes, beforehand, Ash, as he was called, his full name was Ashley. Ash was described as, like, I wouldn't say model citizen. That's not the right word, but he wasn't no one suspected of him of these murders beforehand. He was a bit of a prankster. He was also, he was very jovial. He did take his job at S-Mart seriously, but even then, a lot of his friends back home would describe him as like, yeah, he was kind of like, he could be an asshole sometimes. He could be, a bit of a jerk, but he was never, no one could ever think he was accused of this. And that being the murders in that cabin, But I mean, when we say things like, you hear witnesses say, "Oh, I never thought he was capable of that." I wonder how many people say that about, the Michael Myers boy.
Right.
Yeah. Did anyone think him at 8 years old would brutally murder his sister?
No. So that's why in this case, there's a lot of suspicion, at the very least, cast on Williams.
Yeah. We did as you said, he did have a sister, but do you want to talk a quick bit about the group of friends slash victims?
Sure. So they were all a group of young people. As we know, it was Ash's younger sister Cheryl was there, as well as his friend Scott and Scott's girlfriend Shelly was there, and Ash's girlfriend Linda all went on this trip. So, 5 of them were renting a cabin out in the woods. They were going sort of like a long weekend type vacation, just to get away, drink, do what couples do when they're on a break or on a vacation. So they all went out there. Again, none of them really stand out as people you would suspect to be involved in anything. Like the general, his friend Scott, again, kind of a wise guy, like Ash himself, that we know about. His sister Cheryl, pretty withdrawn individual by all accounts. Linda, just your typical like northern girl, like a nice girl coming out of high school, and similar to Shelley too. So they were looking forward to this weekend when an unspeakable horror occurred to them in one way or another.
Yeah. All of them were normal people. Cheryl was described as very withdrawn, but from what it was said before these murders, a lot of people who were like friends and neighbors of the Williams family were like, yeah, Cheryl was very withdrawn, but like she and her brother were like very close. That in fact it was his insistence that she come along because he didn't want her to spend the summer alone.
Right. Apparently they had some issues with their father. It's not really known what happened to their mother that I could find, but he wanted her to go with him in that case.
Yeah, their father was a alcoholic, so I can imagine, not wanting to be around that for a whole, at least a week alone.
For sure.
But then again, you raise the argument as was that the plan? Did he want to murder his sister along with his friends? Maybe that's why he was so insistent.
Could be. Maybe that's why he pushed for her to go, so he could take her out too. Whether it be because I don't know what the reason could be, honestly, but yeah, maybe he did want her to go as well.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of pictures in most of these cases. We do have photos and things of that nature for these cases, but it was so closed that we didn't have any photos. In fact, this one is the only one, and even then, some people have said, if this is the only photo we have at the cabin, these were only the 5. Who the hell was taking the picture? Thankfully, an artist who believed Ash's claims, which we will get into in a bit, talked to Ash, Mr. Williams, years later, and was a painter and was inspired by these cases to make art. So we will have artist renditions of what happened for this one.
Right. So do we want to talk about Williams' claims, about what his side of the story? I mean, to be clear, the other 4 people are all dead, right? And in some cases, dismembered.
All of the bodies were dismembered and burned.
Yeah.
Now, according to Williams, after he was found, okay. To set the scene, they had arrived at, I believe they arrived at November? No, excuse me. It was the 15th. And they had arrived at about 6 or 7 right before dawn. When it became dark. And what had happened next was no one had heard from them for a whole day. Ash did call his father to let them know that they were at a gas station, that they were about a mile away from the cabin. And that was the last time anyone had any contact with them. Following that, the day later, Williams is picked up by a trooper who's just driving. He didn't even get a call. He was just driving down the highway and found Williams stumbling out of the forest covered in blood. Well, obvious that he was just like half crazed, rambling about these demons and things like that. And the trooper detained him and went to the site, to the cabin, and found the crime scene.
Right, where the other members were dismembered and buried, in some cases with like makeshift crosses put up for them. And when he was taken back to the police station is where Williams related his version of what occurred.
Yeah, apparently the cabin, they had basically rented out the cabin from a third party, which remained anonymous for a while. And according to Williams' testimony that he stuck to throughout the trial, he basically said that there was something in the cellar. There was a noise coming from the cellar that night. They went in deep underground, deep into the cellar, and found this. This was recovered at the crime scene, this book. And there is a lot of history regarding this book, Matt.
Yeah. So we can definitely say forensics had proved this book before it kind of drifted away again, that it was bound in human flesh and inked in human blood.
This book is called the Necronomicon Ex Mortis. And it has quite a history if you dig online and look throughout like the dark web and things like that, or, it's a thing of horror, really.
Yeah. So here's one thing I've came across, and I will just kind of throw it out there and see what you think, what your listeners think, because you talk about how far back this thing could potentially go. So in addition to the book, a recording was found as well, correct?
Yes, a recording was recovered as well.
Right. So the recording mentions a place, Kondoth, if I'm saying that correctly, right? From what I was looking at.
Yes.
So this is where it gets interesting, Tyler, and we talk about the history of the book and where exactly how far back it might go. Do you know what Kondoth was prior to being Kondoth?
Kondoth, if like in the I guess you could say alternate history sites, it's said to be like a place in hell.
So it is, or I have seen this too, is one thing I've come across as a place, another translation, a place of hell on earth. So I've seen one thing that was written down by, let me make sure I can quote this person correctly. Professor Nobi, who I believe made the original recording of that, had suggested that Kondoth, he believes in ancient times, and I might mispronounce this one again, was Colchis, Colchis. Now, this is where it gets interesting, where if you follow mythology, is the spot where Jason of Thessaly supposedly went and took the Golden Fleece, which then left this area in ruin, changing it from Colchis to Kondoth. So it gets a little bit crazy. If you know anything about the mythology associated or the history, maybe, with Jason, is some of the claims that Williams makes would be tied into that mythology as well.
Huh. Fascinating. Now, there was, according to Professor Nobi's work, he had recovered a book, and it's fascinating to also mention that apparently there are 3 of this book.
Yes. So apparently there are 3 of them, which has led to, I know you mentioned, I don't want to go too deep into the 3 books, I guess, today, because it'll branch off away from the Williams case into other potential issues. But yes, there's been reports of other versions of this book and similar occurrences around them, correct?
Correct. As even to this year,
Yes. Yes.
there was a case that sounded very eerily similar to this. In fact, there was also 3 years ago at a high rise in California, and before that, there was a in 2013, which was several years prior, back in 2013, at this very same cabin, there were a series of murders and one disappearance regarding a woman known as Mia, who went missing after these events, very similar events that happened to Mr. Williams.
Yes. Yeah. There's so I did find another similar case predating Williams' claims. Are you familiar with the David Felding incident?
No, actually, please enlighten me.
Sure. So the David Fielding incident, I apologize, I said Felding, took place roughly 9 to 10 years prior to the Williams case. This was involving similarly a group of people who went into the woods who had reported finding a book in a cave that was again written in blood on human flesh, and reported encountering supernatural occurrences as a result of this, including some of their. This is all from Felding's perspective, by the way, very similar to Williams or Fielding's experience. I'm sorry. And Fielding is saying that some of his friends became possessed, that they saw visions of like a castle that was time displaced, that they encountered demonic figures. I have heard sometimes it's referred to as the equinox experience by the professors who were treating Fielding after he was discovered, similarly to Williams, walking along the road and was picked up by a police officer as all of his friends were now dead or missing. But I just thought that was interesting. So there is some, I don't know if precedence is the term, but similar experiences a few years prior to what Williams is reporting here.
That is interesting. Another case that does sound similar, that does tie to a book, that was claimed to be one of the 3 books, was apparently one of the back in 1989. It was believed, allegedly, that it was tied to the Crystal Lake killer.
Yes, I've seen that. Where didn't they find a copy of one of the books in his mother's house, I believe?
Yes, when they searched the Voorhees house, they did find the book, but after that, it vanished. Some people say it went to a private collector.
These books have a tendency to vanish and find themselves in the private collector market, only to turn up later with horrible consequences.
It reminds me very much of the another cursed relic, the Lament Configuration.
Yes, yeah, I would say so. I'm sure we'll cover at some point, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to say what Williams indicated occurred now? I've already kind of laid the groundwork for cases beforehand as you did for cases after. But do you want to talk about what Williams' claimed occurred?
Yeah, I was just about to say, let's get into that. Now, according to Williams, that night after they had listened to the recording, thinking it's just more than a scary story, Cheryl actually became very visibly upset by it and was distraught the rest of the night. Now, according to Williams, various occurrences followed Cheryl. She was hearing voices. She was becoming more agitated and more frightened, even begging Ash to take her home, which Ash did eventually. He agreed to. Now, the car apparently crashed. Not crashed, excuse me. It was blocked by by seemingly the forest itself. And Cheryl, in a fit of just panic, ran out into the forest. And I don't wish to talk about what Ash was told by his sister before everything happened, because it was very uncomfortable.
No, and I believe it was like the car did crash, according to Williams. But we do know for sure the bridge that they took was taken out.
That's true.
Yeah, without like much of a storm report in the area or anything like that. No, it was an old bridge. I mean, we're talking not the most upkeep in this rural area, but still the bridge was taken out, limiting their ability to return quickly to the nearest town.
That's actually why it took so long for people to like. In fact, that officer went to check to see the bridge out because he had heard reports, so he was taking a detour, and that's why it took so long for like the rest of law enforcement to reach the cabin because the bridge had gone out.
Correct.
Now, after that event with Cheryl, that again, I was very uncomfortable hearing that part. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And she had returned and became very sullen, very withdrawn. Scott and Ash were convinced that there was someone in the forest that had assaulted her because they couldn't believe it. What she had said, they said attacked her, which was the trees.
Right, which make much more sense for there to be an assailant in a forest in a secluded area. We've seen that many a time, as opposed to the trees. But then, and again, we keep prefacing this with, according to Williams, this shit really hit the fan, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Later that night, they were playing cards, and Cheryl was guessing the cards left and right, and then suddenly she became something else. According to Williams, she became possessed and attacked the others, speaking in various voices, floating off of the ground, becoming incredibly strong. What do you make of this?
It's hard to say. Again, we only have Williams' claims. It's bolstered a little bit by the fact that there's other claims, like you'd mentioned, that would occur after the fact, and I'd mentioned a few that occurred before it, because there's similar claims around this. But it's really hard to believe. And apparently this woman was strong enough to throw like Ash and Scott around like they were rag dolls when this occurred to her. I know we discussed like the Christine Brown case. We saw maybe similar type of activities from people who claimed to have interacted with demons. So it's hard to say. I can't 100% say I believe Williams on this one. You know, I find it difficult, but it is interesting that this is what he points out.
Yeah. I find it a little difficult that Ash has every time during the interviews, Ash had a perfect answer, or perfect in the sense that like he just had like an answer to explain, okay, why is your friend chopped up? Why is your girlfriend burned? Why did you put your sister? They did lock her in the cellar after these ravings potentially, and then he would just have an answer again and again and again.
Yeah, and his story would be pretty consistent, which could mean that that's the way it occurred and that's why he's saying it, or that he just rehearsed it a lot to make sure he didn't screw anything up.
I mean, we've talked about some pretty bizarre things on here, but again, like it's much like what I said with the Kristen Brown case, and it's funny that we keep going back to that one specifically because you see a lot of connections there, right?
For sure. In terms of like the description of what occurred to these women and men in Scott's case too, because Williams would claim that what it affected Cheryl would spread to Linda and Scott as well, where they became possessed, deformed, exhibited strength beyond belief, were able to levitate, had incredible durability, where like Williams, we know that these people were dismembered, but Williams claims that like gunshots and hacking off limbs didn't really stop them until they were almost completely chopped into pieces, which is why, you know, sort of like as a boogeyman, some of the kids refer to him as Ashy Slashy, correct?
That's correct. To this day, he's considered the boogeyman of his town.
Yeah. And like, am I mistaken? Did he not also cut off his own hand?
He did. He said that his hand had become possessed. But keep in mind that happened when after he was acquitted, he went back to that cabin.
Oh, he went back to it. Okay, my mistake.
Yeah, he went back to it. I know it's bizarre, but like he went back to the very same cabin with a new girlfriend who went missing.
See, that's that is really casts him down on it. And then his story gets even more crazy from there, right? With time travel and things. I think it's
yeah. But getting back to this, the other thing I think we forgot to mention that was in that was recovered, and I showed it in the painting right here, was this dagger that was found alongside the book and the tape recorder.
Yeah, so I think it's between the book, the tape recorder. I do, and we know that the Professor Knowby was there. They definitely found the artifacts, the archaeological artifacts that Knowby had found on his journeys, and for whatever reason, Knowby chose to take these things to this remote location to study them. So, again, I find it hard to believe Williams' claims, but you would think a professor like that would take what they find to a museum, right? But instead, he took it to this faraway place. Now, I don't know if it's to be fair, but to give Williams as much benefit of the doubt as we can, in the original recording, Knowby does say that this occurred to his wife as well, who went missing, correct?
Yes. His wife had some kind, according to the recordings, which some people have said, because a lot of the court was closed off to the public, listening to the recordings, the jurors were so convinced that that's what got him off the murder charge. I do think he was sentenced to like probation at most, because there wasn't enough to convict him.
Right. Did he have to go for any kind of psychological eval as well? I would hope
he did. He spent 4 years in psychological eval and then probation.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because he claims that like Scott and his own girlfriend as well were taken over by this evil, and this is where things get like a little hazy. He claims to have thrown the book into the fireplace, right? But the book, or at least one of the versions of the book, I don't know, was found later, like relatively undamaged, despite being thrown into a fire. Correct?
Yeah, they threw it into a fire. It did nothing. In fact, it just looked unsinged, which I'm like, even if this thing is bound in human flesh and written in human blood as it's claimed to be, it still would burn. Like you would still have signs of it, like having at least singe marks, right? Or burn marks.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like you can cremate a person, so we know that human flesh can be burned. But this one, nothing happened to it. Again, that's if what Ashley claims occurred, right?
Yeah. It just seems like there was he had an answer for everything, like I said, and the progression of time throughout the night of all of his friends and loved ones being possessed, and only Ash. And I have to ask, I don't think it was properly answered by him. Why wasn't he possessed?
So I have seen, as you know, he, like you said, he went back to the cabin. He claims there's in the book itself, from what we've seen about it, that there's like a prophecy about there will be one person chosen to fight against this evil, and he is the chosen one, if you will. You know, this is a similar story to what we heard like in the Buffy Summers case when she burned down that gym, you know, where she was a chosen person and all those people died. So this like chosen person one obviously could be a psychological thing that occurs, you know, where they feel like they have to do this. It has, however, this idea that Williams was a chosen person to, you know, fight back this evil, kind of led to this sort of small cult-like following that he has of fans who believe his story and think that he's the only person out there kind of holding back like an apocalypse, right?
Yeah, it's a little, I think it's a little demented that there are people out there who think a mass murderer is a hero.
Right. Well, to be fair, accused mass murderer because he wasn't convicted.
Matt, come on, man.
You know, I listen, just so we're covered in case of Williams is crazy. Let's not not put that out there, okay? Or he's prone to rash decisions still to this day. So let's just make sure that if he happens to hear this recording, that we're wording things properly.
Fair enough. Now, I do want to bring up I want to cycle back to the book, because when you look up some of the pages in here, there's some scary stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And again, like, this isn't just ink that we're looking at. This is blood that it's drawn in, right? That's been confirmed.
That's been confirmed. It's also been dated back to the 11th, to even before the 11th century. People have said that it was first appeared in the Dark Ages, but keep in mind, I said first appeared. It was written before then.
Right. Well, like I had mentioned, Nobi has suggested that the place he found it at was the site of, again, it's a bit of a stretch, but where Jason supposedly took the golden fleece, and in that mythology, there were reanimated corpses that he reportedly took on. So who knows? Who knows exactly how far back it goes? I don't know if that's a direct connection or just like a possibility, but we do know for the Dark Ages for sure, right? I think we can say Dark Ages for sure.
Dark Ages for sure, but I've seen like some people have said that it's older than that, than Time in Memoriam. It's just that's where it first shows up in history books.
Right.
What's interesting is that was one. What about the other two?
Who knows? We know that two others have shown up. We'll get more into it in a separate thing, but we could reference the Mia Allen case, correct? And then the more recent Beth Bixler case, right?
Yep. One as soon as this year alone, and then 3 years ago.
Right. There's another case that was just recently came up, but we don't have enough details to really talk about it.
There was even a case involving the book. I forgot to mention this, but there was one as far back as the 1970s.
Oh yes, yeah.
Again, it's interesting that like when you at first, like, look, I'm not putting Ash Williams as a good person, but at the same time, you hear a lot of these stories, right? Like that sound just so similar to what Williams went through. I mean, yeah, there are variations, but like they all sound very similar. And again, the accounts from like the 1970s case,
Yeah. Although, is it a case of copycats, right? Like we did say, he's got a bit of a cult following around him. Are these people copycats? He's been known to say, Williams has been quoted many times saying "Hail to the King," referring to himself. Are some of these admirers, I hate to say that term again, of what looks like he did, trying to hail to him by sort of reenacting what occurred?
Yeah, it could be that he definitely seems like someone who would have an ego.
Yeah. One thing I can say, Tyler, is that before this, he was kind of a wise guy. He was a bit more subdued. He's definitely been more charismatic after this event, whether that's, as a result of trauma that happened to him or trauma he inflicted on others. But in some ways, not in every way, because, it's difficult to find a job when you're thought to be a killer. It may have benefited him.
I mean, he's gotten, from what I've heard, he's book deals, comic books about his quote unquote adventures, movie deals. This son of a bitch got everything because he thought he saw ghosts.
Yes. Yeah. And his friends ended up dead and dismembered, and his sister.
Yeah. Now, I have heard another rumor that, or another theory that maybe Ash, if anything, and I don't want to put Cheryl under the bus, but Cheryl always had like a bit of a psychosis to her, and maybe that some of that psychosis, that's some people have thought that maybe Cheryl was schizophrenic, and maybe it ran. People have theorized that maybe their mother was schizophrenic too before she left was kicked out of the house. So maybe it ran in the family, and maybe Ash had it too. And between Cheryl's episodes and also all the drinking and possible drug use, and also all the stuff with this book and the recording, maybe the psychosis kind of overtook Ash's mind.
Entirely possible. It's certainly a more likely explanation than what Williams is claiming.
I mean, yeah, it's the most logical. But then, if he is schizophrenic, he's hiding it pretty well behind all these book deals and whatnot. In fact, I think he's now in Jacksonville.
I believe that is the case. Yes, I believe he is currently in Jacksonville, living it up, as it were, in his mind. However, I would recommend, if you're in Jacksonville, don't go look him up.
Yeah, we advise against having altercations.
Yeah, because I would say I try to play devil's advocate, Tyler. And like you said, we've put together other cases or referenced other cases similar to what Williams claims happened. And we do know the artifacts were found. I find it very difficult to believe his claims. I think there's a good chance he did take these people out and just got away with it, either by having a story so scary that it kind of like spooked the jurors, or by being so convincing when he speaks and mesmerizing that he was able to get away with it. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. Like, you had all this, there was clear blood that was tested to be, well, actually, let me rephrase that. When the blood, the DNA from the axe and the cadavers, there was something like, according to the coronary reports, something was wrong with it, like some kind of corrupted element.
All right, I wasn't aware of that part. So I'll leave a maybe open there, but I'm still, I can't say I'm convinced by his story and what occurred.
Nor can I. It's really hard to say. But we've talked about so many fantastical things. And again, I know I'm more of a believer in a lot of these cases, but there's a lot more physical evidence. It's, again, I know I connect this a lot to the Christine Brown case that you brought up,
right?
But like, it's the same thing with that, where it's like there's not a lot of evidence to kind of disprove what's known in the police reports.
Right. I think that's the key here. Maybe if there was another witness, if we had photographs or video of those claims. I get it. This was 1979, 1980?
1981.
1981. So less likely to be than like with the Christine Brown case, where we know we had surveillance cameras all over the place. And this, again, a rural location. But still, if we had any kind of more evidence to help support Williams' claims, I do believe after the fact there would be some people who would claim that similar events occurred to Williams again. Is that right? Somebody named Kelly and Pablo, I think, had referenced that they had seen similar things happen, but it's still two people that you can't put a lot on.
Yeah. And they also have been criticized for like being too close to him and part of his cult.
Right. So it's very difficult to say that that's what occurred, to believe what they said occurred. So I'm, at the very least, this is certainly an individual you want to steer clear of, right? I think we can say that for sure. Either some crazy shit is happening to him, or he's causing crazy shit to happen, one way or the other.
More than I can agree with, Matt. It's yeah. But I really don't have anything else to say. I mean, I will say I guess my final word on it is that I do find it a little bizarre that like there were similar cases to Mr. Williams dating back far as the 70s. Maybe there are other cases that will come to light one day about them.
It could be. Like you said, there are some strange things around this, but again, I just stay away from the guy. Yeah,
at the end of the day, that's my thinking too. But But you, dear listener, tell us, do you think Ash Williams is an innocent man, or do you think he's a murderer? But should you come across one of these alleged 3 cursed books, perhaps it's best to put it back on the shelf. Until next time, Matt, thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
It's my pleasure, as always.
And until next time, dear listener, here's to a world of gods and monsters.